All right, so on campus, I first knew you as Bob the Painter. I think a lot of people just call you Bob the Painter.
Yeah. And that's cool.
It's been, I noticed, well, you just kind of appeared out of nowhere for me, painting everywhere and helping take care of the campus. And then I asked, well, what's your story a little bit? And we got to sit down and have coffee and you share with me. And it's a really good, really amazing story of what God has done. And so the goal would be to maybe spend 15 minutes or so of you sharing about your growing up time, your background, where you're from, all that. And then 15 minutes or so of how God saved you and grew you. And then the last 15 minutes of how you came to this place and why you're here, that kind of thing.
That sounds.
So does that sound like a good plan?
Yep.
All right, we'll start the clock. Okay. So Bob, what's your name and where are you from?
My name is Robert Abromowitz, and I'm from Camden, New Jersey. I was born in 1955 to a mother who was an alcoholic and no father. So my mom had to work all the time, and I pretty much got to do whatever I wanted in Camden, New Jersey. So I went to work with her sometimes at the bar. She worked at a bar, Mindy's, and I would go there and I would dance for them, and they would throw money in a jar, and they would let me take sips of their beer, and and then I can remember as small kids them having parties at the house all the time. And again, as I got older, I can remember going out after they all walked outside and after the party and grabbing some beer cans and going in the closet and drinking. And I pretty much did that for a while, and I pretty much got to do whatever I wanted. As a young child, my mom always was working, so my sister had to watch me, my older sister, and I would get up in the morning and unlock the door and go outside, and she would wake up and think, oh, where's Bobby? Oh my God. And she would call my mom, and my mom would say, call your uncle. My uncle was a cop. So she would call my uncle, and he would come and get me and tell me, yo, boy, I was only around the corner, but to me it was fun. And he'd say, boy, get in that car. And he'd put me in the police car, and then he'd take me downtown, and he'd put me in a jail cell, and they'd give me candy and soda, and I really thought that was cool.
And like for them, was it like a joke or was he like mad?
It was like a joke and try to scare me and teach me, because all my life my uncle, he would stop by and see how I was doing, and he would always say, boy, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $1, you go in and wash them hands, because my hands were always dirty because I was always in the dirt. And so I would go in and wash my hands. And I always thought the world of him because he was such a big figure. And little did I know that I would wind up asking him all the time for help. As I grew up, I got in trouble. I moved out of Camden, moved to Belmar, started drinking heavy. And
when you remember like your uncle picking you up and like you thought it was cool, like how old were you?
I was around 6.
Okay.
And one time I can remember him put me in the Camden County Jail, and then a news reporter, this is what my mom told me. I didn't remember the news reporter, but she said a news reporter came and asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up. And I told them I want to be a cop. And they said, why? I said, so I can get a gun and go rob all the candy stores.
No.
As a kid, how do you comprehend that? I don't know how I did. But my mom said that, so I believe it was, I have to look for that article someday. So you know, my uncle always got me out of trouble, whether it was any trouble I got in, he would do a favor for a judge and they'd get me right out. So I became a big thing in Camden County Jail. I thought I was hot stuff. The guards would always say, "You back again, Abromowitz?" I go, yeah, I'll be out, man. I'll be out of here in no time.
So like, and that was like when you were a teenager or what?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, as I grew up, 17, and I would go in there and I was like a regular in the jail. So I started doing more drugs, got into cocaine and drinking a lot and robbing and stealing. And I would always justify my sin because my mom always told me about God, but you know, she'd always be praying. "Bobby, where were you?" She'd have the Bible open saying, "I was praying for you." I go, "Mom, you ain't got to worry about it. I'm okay." So I knew about God, but I never knew God. And I would always justify my sin by, we're poor, we don't have anything. So, you know, I got to rob these stores and things to get money to help my mom. I justified everything. So I got into that pretty heavy and winded up getting caught. And at the age of 17, and again, I go into jail and thinking, yeah, Mom, call Uncle Joe, they're lying. I didn't do it. So she calls him and says, yeah, he called, he talked to the judge, you're going to be getting out. So I thought I was getting out, and I give all my commissary away, and I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here. And go in front of the judge and tell him, you know, well, what do you want to, I go, I want to get out, and I want to help my mom, I want to get a job, and, you know. And he goes, well, Mr. Abromowitz, I'm sorry, you can't do that because you ain't nothing but a liar. And in my mind, I'm like, how did he know I was a liar? You know, so I got sent to prison for the first time. And I did a year in prison, and I went to a camp, an honor camp, and I did a year. Then I got out, and I got heavier into cocaine and just doing a lot of drugs and everything, and now I didn't have nobody to help me anymore. Because at this time, Mom had passed away, and the uncle couldn't help me anymore.
and okay, so how old are you by this time?
I'm like, I want to say 23 maybe,
And how long were you in prison, did you
a
say?
year.
Okay.
So I got out, and then I winded up robbing and stealing again, and drinking, drugging. I'm out of control at this time, and I get sent back on a violation for another year. So I do another year, and then I'm out again, and it's really just I'm messed up. I'm just doing coke all the time and drinking. I wake up in the morning, drink, and I don't know what to do anymore. And I always remember my mom saying, Bobby, you'd be all right if you just quit that drinking out. But I couldn't. I tried everything I could to stop drinking, and I just couldn't stop. So I said, well, I'll just go in for a probation violation, because I was on probation at the time, and they'll put me in a drug rehab and I'll be okay. So I go in and they give me 3 years. I go, 3 years for what? For, you know, they used to give they give you like a couple months. I go, are you kidding me? No, that's what we're giving out. So I get in there and I'm in jail again, and I go, man, what am I gonna do? So I met this Spanish dude. He knew how to write real good. I didn't know how to spell and write and all that. So he helped me out. He wrote a letter to the judge, and the judge said if I get in a drug rehab, he would give me a time cut. So I winded up going to prison again. I winded up going to Trenton State Prison, and from there I went to their honor camp. Now, every prison has an honor camp, and Jones Farm was Trenton State's prison honor camp. So you go into prison, and it's 150 years old. It's dungeon cells, yelling, screaming, and I'm saying to myself, this is where I'm going to end up. This is going to be my life. I'm going to die in here someday. I'm going to be a bank robber or something, you know, I'm thinking in my mind, I'm depressed, I'm down, I'm just screaming and yelling. And in there, the hallways are real long and all the screaming. So I go to the honor camp and I bought a TV. And on the TV, there was a PTL club. And people were like praying and I go, and they were smiling and laughing. I go, man, you know, there must be something to this God thing. You know, these people are happy.
What's a PTL club?
I think it was like at one of the ministries back then. I think they called it the PTL. It was one of them. I don't remember what the name was, but it was the church service was going, and the people were smiling and happy. And I thought, I want that, man. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of coming back to jail, prison. I don't want it anymore. Because I always said, I'll be back, I'll be back, I'll be back. And so I decided I'm going to go to church. And at that time, blacks and whites were separated. We didn't hang together, blacks. So they had black church, they had white church. But they didn't have no white pastor because none of the white guys went to church. So I said, well, I'm going to go to the black church. So I get in line, and all my boys are like, what are you doing? I go, I'm going to church. What, are you going to a black church? I go, what difference does it make? I'm going to church. So I go to church, and they start, hallelujah, and that kind of scared me. I'm like, oh, wow, what is this? I thought, but I went, and they talked about Jesus, so I went a couple more times. And then the pastor, he came to me and he goes, Bob, you know Jesus Christ as your Savior? I go, no. He goes, would you like to? Would you like to be baptized? I go, yeah. He goes, okay, we got to go back to the big house, Trenton State Prison. I didn't want to go back there because that's where I'm going to end up. I go, nah. And then something inside of me said, go. And so I said, all right. So it's me and the pastor, just me. He comes, it's time for baptism. We got to go back. And he comes and gets me.
Why did he say you had to go back to the prison?
Yeah, that's where the baptism pool was.
Oh, okay, to get baptized.
Yeah, to get baptized in there. So we go, and the gates, the gates are they're, I'd say 50-foot gates, iron gates, and they open up, and it's just me and him walking down this long corridor, and I hear the scream and then the yelling, and I'm looking, and the cell blocks are actually dungeons. It's so old that it's just, when I think about it, I see it now, it's just eerie. And the yelling and the screaming, I was pretty much used to the yelling and screaming because I grew up in that atmosphere, always in jail. 24/7 it's yelling. So I put it, but this time it just seemed eerie, man. I go, oh man, this is me, man. This is where I'm going to end up with these guys. And I was just so depressed. And then me and him went into the baptism pool, and he just baptized me in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And we left. And on the way out, I heard the Lord in my heart tell me, you'll never be back here again. And immediately I knew, it was just like a revelation Paul got. I knew that I wouldn't be back. I was just overwhelmed with joy, man. And we left, and I got into the Bible, and the rest is history. I winded up getting a time cut because they got me in a rehab. There was a Christian rehab, and I did 90 days there. And when I left, they said, Bob, you was one of the best students we had because I wanted this thing so bad. I didn't want to ever go back. And then I just got out, and as I got out, I ran into a friend of mine who I couldn't find a place to live, and so he helped me out. He let me stay with him. And
hey everyone,
I winded up
Jackson here.
going to church with the guy who was my coke dealer.
Brothers.
As I was in prison, came to know the Lord.
Of what God is doing
going to church,
to prepare
so I wound up going to church with him for a while.
For his church.
And then
that's what we're
I
trying
didn't
to
like
do.
that
So
church.
if
And
you enjoy the stories,
it was
share
just
this
some things
podcast with others.
I didn't think scriptural.
So that they can
So
hear
I left
what God
that
is
and
doing around the world.
And just said, you know what, I'm going to just read the Bible and pray to God, and whatever it tells me, I'm going to listen to. And for 5 years, that's what I did. I would walk past this one church that said, Jesus Save. It had a cross, and up there it said Jesus. I said, that looks like a good, and I always wanted to go in, but I just didn't. In my mind, from visiting the one church that I had just been to, that was and back from the days when growing up, how they were caught stealing and lying and robbing, and so I didn't believe. So I said, you know what, I'm going to read the Bible. I went out and bought a Bible that was 100 years old, and I said, this Bible and my Bible, which was King James.
Did you have a Bible when you were in prison?
Yeah.
And so you started reading the Bible immediately after you were baptized?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I said, this Bible here is 100 years old, so whatever's true is coming out of this. It was a 100-year-old King James Bible. So I prayed and just stayed with that for about 4 years, 5 years. Then I met a friend, Hector, who I winded up getting a job with. And he says, oh, no, you got to go to church. I go, no, I don't. It don't say it in the Bible. He goes, oh, yes, it does. It says you got to fellowship with other believers.
Did he show you where it said that in the Bible?
I think I found it. I don't think he didn't show me. We were just talking. I just believed him because he was a good Christian. He knew the word, but he.
So okay. I want to go on hearing how you were with Hector and maybe found a church. But first, what were the things you kind of mentioned about? What were the things keeping you from going into the church? What were like the?
Well, there was a guy on TV. I'm trying to remember his name. Him and his wife. They got caught robbing the church and stealing, and then they just kept on him. I'm trying to think of his name. And they just kept doing stories on him, how they stole. And then the other guy, who's a pastor now, who was forgiven by God, he got caught with a hooker, and Pat, can't remember his name either, but he repented, and his church is alive today.
Okay. So you just felt like you didn't know if you could trust the people in the church.
Right. So I figured, but the Holy Spirit all the time, while this 5 years, I'm reading what the Word's telling me, and it's everything it says is true. Like I got into a relationship with a woman, and she was separated from her husband. So it was okay, and I justified my sin by, I'm going to save her, and and so that relationship for 5 years, I winded up reading, and it, there was many things in there that said you got to flee this sin. So I winded up doing that. I wound up getting away from her and everything, and then I winded up coming. I went to Florida for 6 months. I said, I can't go back. I gotta take the log out of my eye before I can take the splinter out of my brother's eye. And I said, when I go back home, I can't be justifying my sin anymore. God wants 100% of me. He doesn't want 10%. So I said, when I go back, man, I'm not getting in. So I didn't get in any more relationships with her or any other one.
And that's just from reading the Bible and realizing what it said was true.
From the Holy Spirit working with me all this time.
Yeah.
He's telling me and talking to me and showing me what I need to learn.
Okay. Why did you leave that first church that your friend took you to when you first got out of prison?
Well, because truthfully, he said something, he changed some words in the Bible. And I had read where no one changes any of the words. And I didn't like that. And then on the way home, my buddy had told his daughter, who was working at a store, to keep the cash and you don't have to pay taxes on it. And I thought, dude, why are you teaching your daughter? That's your daughter, man. You don't teach, if we do it, that's one, if you do it, that's one thing, but you're going to teach your daughter to do that? And I said, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
So that wasn't a good place to be. Okay, and then your friend Hector said you need to be meeting with believers.
Yeah.
So how did you find a church?
Well, the same church every day, it was a quarter mile down from that church with the Jesus.
And why did you pass it every day? Going to work? Or
I would just walk.
Oh, just walking.
Because I
Okay.
didn't have my license yet.
Oh, okay.
I had lost my license for 20 years from drunk driving. And so I would walk past that crutch, going to the store, going somewhere.
Okay.
But I always thought that was... And then one time they had a thing for singles Bible study and all. And so I said...
Like you saw that on the sign or what?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
So I said, well, I'm going to try that out, man. Singles, I'll find a girl there. I can get married. Because that was I wanted the white picket fence, everything. And so I go, and they're all like 60 and 70. And I go, you got to be kidding me, man. And here, it was at a house, though. It was at one of the people's houses. But when they prayed, what amazed me was I thought the Lord was upstairs. I'll tell you, because their prayer was so good that it made me want to come back. And so I came back, and I went a few more times. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to pray about going to that church, to their church. And so I prayed about it. I said, Lord, now I still had this sin. This was still when I was still messing with the girl. I jumped ahead of myself there a little. And I still had that sin, and I told the Lord everything that I had the sin in my life. And I said, if I go up there to that church and that comes out of that pastor's mouth, Lord, I know that nobody else knows this but you and me. And so I go to that church, and he was just talking to me, man. And I just could not, I was out of my mind. I go, this is going to be my church.
Because you were convicted about sin? Like
No, because the passage he was talking about was everything that convicted me of nobody else knew that sin between me and God. That was it. And now the pastor was talking about it. And I knew right away that, this is going to be my church. And for 22 years till I came here, it was my church.
Oh, okay. So that became your home church.
It became my home.
That church that you used to pass walking every day?
That says Jesus saves in the cross up there.
Wow.
And it was just amazing, In that church I see the Gideons came in and they gave their testimony, and I said, man, I want to be a Gideon someday. I couldn't believe it. These godly men with this message of hope, and I go, I got a message of hope, I could tell. And they were going into prisons. I go, I wonder if I can go into, and because I had already tried to get into prison with a prison ministry called Jericho. And they turned me down. They said, you can't, you're a felon. You can't get in prison. So I winded up from my church joining the Gideons.
Okay.
I became a Gideon, and I asked, they were going into the Camden County Jail, the same jail that I grew up in.
Wow.
And I said, wow, man, I would love to go in there and tell my testimony to these guys. But I can't. They go, what do you mean you can't? I go, well, I tried with Jericho, which is a prison ministry, and they told me, no, you can't because you're a felon. They said, well, look, we'll tell you what. You fill out the application for the FBI, and we'll send it in, we'll pray about it, and we'll see what happens. I said, okay, I'm game. I did it, and I passed.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm blown away. Only God could have done this because it was true. I'm a felon. You can't go back into this jail if you're a felon. They let me in.
Okay.
So I got to go back into the Camden County Jail, the jail that I grew up in. And at this time, it's been a few years now that the the one guard that I knew, he was just a regular guard at that time. So I'm in there giving my testimony to the prisoners, and who walks by, but he's not just a regular guard. Now he's the captain of the guard.
Wow.
And he walks by and he looks in the window, and me and him catch, and he looks and he goes, like he's amazed, like he can't believe it. And I go out and I give my testimony. I go, I can't believe it either, but this is what God has done. And, you know, it never, I, to this day, don't know why he never said that I shouldn't be in. You know, I never questioned it. I just went, and I was doing that for that ministry for a good 3 years.
Okay.
And I got out of that and winded up, a guy at my church was going on mission trips and all around the world. And
Before we get to that, tell me about this. What is this that you brought?
the picture here is, this is when I got out of prison and became a Christian, and I bought my first house. I now had a business called Bob Loves Painting, and I said, well, if I name my business Bob Loves Painting, love's in there, it can't fail. So that's what I started. I wanted to paint churches. And this church here was a church that was 1,200 years old, and it was one of the biggest churches in South Jersey at the time. It held, no, it wasn't 1,200, I'm sorry, it held 1,200 people. And it was one of the oldest churches in Collingswood at the time. And the pastor had thousands of people. So, you know, God allowed me to paint in this church because I wound up good friends with one of the elders at the church, and he allowed me to paint it. And I just thought, I was amazed that, you know, this church that had so much history, and I was just amazed. And then this lady comes up to me out of nowhere and she goes, do you mind if I take your picture? I go, do I mind if you take my picture? Yeah, I'm from the Philadelphia Inquirer. I go, well, wait a minute, let me get my hat on. So I ran and got my hat.
It's a nice looking picture.
Yeah. And so she takes my picture, and I think, and I'm like blown away again. I'm like, only God can do this. I mean, you know, who can do something like this? Now I just started my business. I'm in the newspapers, you know? I mean, and she's from Philadelphia. I never could figure that out.
How did she get there?
Why she was there. But
right.
In a little article, the Philadelphia had a South Jersey
okay.
that they did in the Philadelphia Inquirer. And I asked around who got the news. And the only person I found was the people at my paint store. They got it. Yeah, Bob, we're seeing you in a bit. So I don't know how much.
How did you start painting? Did you start painting right when you got out of prison, or when did you start that?
Yeah, I did start painting when I got out of prison the first time.
Okay.
With the guy, Bob, who winded up getting saved at my last prison stay.
Oh.
He taught me how to paint because I was good best friends with his brother Eddie. Me and Eddie grew up together, and he let us paint. He had this big apartment complex, and he taught me how to paint. Started out in closets, and then did bathrooms and kitchens. Then we painted the whole apartment, me and Eddie. But we were both drunks, drug addicts. So we wanted to get, if we got 3 apartments done in a day, then we made our money. So we would get done by 1 o'clock. We'd knock it out by 1 o'clock and be in the bar sitting by 1, me and Eddie. And so that's it. You know, Bob was he was a big help in getting us drugs and the money, because anytime when we spent up all our money, we just go to Bob for a loan, and he would loan us to the next week and just take it out of our pay. So he did that. And we were okay with it. That was a great way to live. You know, we were just, that's all we cared about. We'd be at the bar, boom, have enough money for some drugs, and then we'd borrow money till the next week. That went on for years. Did that. And just, that was a vicious cycle. And then,
So when you got out of prison the second time, that was the work that you knew, and you started doing again, painting.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all I knew. But when I first got out, first started painting again, I hated painting because that's all I ever said when I was a drunk drug addict was I hate painting. And I was painting in a house one time, and I'm looking at, and I said, you know what? You got to stop saying you hate painting. The Lord gave you this job to as a blessing. You got to learn how to love it, man. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start saying I love it. And from that moment on, I just love painting.
And you're still painting.
And I'm still painting. And I don't love painting, but I love painting, but I don't love prepping. So I try to get somebody else to prep in my business.
Now, okay, how long before you told yourself, this is the work the Lord has given me? Like, was that like right away, or
yeah, that was right away.
Pretty soon after you started doing it again, you're like, okay, this is work that God's given me.
Because my whole attitude changed. I mean, I was a pathological liar. I mean, I read in the Word told me He knows my thoughts. And right away I said, whoa, wait a minute. He knows my thoughts. I can't lie anymore. And that was like amazing to me. It was like, just like that. Okay, I can't lie anymore. He knows my thoughts. He knows them before I know them. So I can't lie. And then I can't steal anymore because He knows what I'm going to do. So I had to stop stealing because I was a kleptomaniac. That's all I did every day for years. I'm talking go in stores and rob and walk out with anything I could. And back then you could just go in Corvettes and pick up a leather jacket and walk out the store with it. And nobody would, they just suspected it was your jacket. They didn't, there was just so many things. I was just every day I woke up, everything I knew was go out and rob something. That's all I ever knew. Or drink or get in trouble or do something wrong.
But then through reading the Bible, you start realizing.
The amazing thing to me was I can't lie no more because I was a pathological liar. And I can't, because if I steal, I can't say I didn't.
Because He's going to know.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was amazing how the Holy Spirit, when I look back at it, them 5 years of reading that Word taught me so much, through living. I knew I had 3 women in my apartment at one time. One was my girlfriend, one was my ex-girlfriend, and one was a girl come from Philly, left her husband and came over. I was going to give her a place to stay. And I looked and I said, look, they're all happy. They're all talking. I go, something's wrong here. And that's when I remembered in the Bible, it said, flee these sins, You must flee these sins. And so I went out to the trash can, and I kid you not, in the trash can was all these boxes, and they were already labeled dishes and this. And I said, that's it, I'm moving. I'm out of here. I'm going to move. I'm going to go stay with my nephew in Florida. And I took them boxes out, I packed them up, put them at my sister's, and I went to Florida. And that's when I decided that when I go back, I'm not going to, that I can't do anything. I can't lie. I can't try to justify I got to be 100% for the Lord.
Okay, we're headed into our last 15 minutes. You started to tell me about, so you have your home church and you're kind of like growing in that, and then someone was going on mission trips. Okay. So what did the Lord, you said you had been part of that church for 20 years before coming here.
Yeah.
What did the Lord do with you in those 20 years, and how did that get you here?
Yeah. So the mission, when I met a guy, Dan, in my church, him and his daughters were going on mission trip. I asked Dan, I said, man, can I go with you guys? He goes, yeah, we'll let you go one time. You'll be able to go. I always wanted to go when he was going. And I don't remember what was my first trip that I went on with him, but it was out of the country. I had to get my passport and everything.
You don't remember where it was too?
It might have been El Salvador.
Okay. South America somewhere.
Yeah. It was El Salvador. And actually, the first trip I ever took with my church was El Salvador. And we went there on a visit to visit a lady who spent her whole life as a missionary there. She was 18. Sophie Muir was her name. She was 18 years old. She come from New York, single girl, went into the jungles, was going to preach the word to the Indians. They gave her poison, and she spit it up and winded up being their, they said, they thought she was a witch doctor. That's why they poisoned her, but she spit it up, and so they made her their chief or something, and she winded up writing Bibles in their language, and thousands of Indians came to know the Lord because of this one girl. And that's why my first mission trip in 1999.
Okay.
And I was just blown away with that, of just the Indians, when they talked about this lady who never married. From when we got there, she had passed away already. And we went to see where she lived, For 50 years, she lived in a little tiny hut. But the Indians, when they talked about her, tears would come to their eyes, and they just, and I thought, wow, look at all these thousands of Indians from one girl who went into the jungles, and they're still, her word's still being used today. The Word of Life camp it was. And I was just blown away by that, and that just fed me to my buddy Dan. Then he started taking me on these mission trips with CWE, which is that ministry. You could probably read that, I can't. And this ministry goes around the world painting churches and building churches. They build them.
And you paint them.
And I paint. So it takes, for them to build a church, it usually takes about 4 weeks. And I always got the last week.
Oh, wow.
So I would get to see the finished product.
Yeah.
And the pastor preach and people come to know the Lord.
Wow.
Which blew me away, that these men could all go and work together without fighting with that. And they're, they're doing it for free. It just blew my mind that they were just so loving, and just the work got done so nice and so quickly.
And they did that around the world?
And they do that today around the world. My last visit with them was in Togo in Africa.
Okay.
I went there and painted a church for them.
How long ago was that?
That was a couple years ago. Well, that wasn't my last. That was my last out of the country.
Okay.
Right before COVID hit. And since I've been here, I've been to two in-state now. They did a lot of in-state because of COVID. I've done them in Tennessee, 2 of them in Tennessee. And so,
okay, well, on the first trip to El Salvador, what did you do on that trip? Did you paint, or were you doing other things?
no, on that trip, we went there just to preach to the Indians, but they wouldn't let us go. They said, well, I don't think you should go back there today because they might kill you. And I'm like, wow, you mean you were going to send us to these Indians that might kill us? And I thought, wait a minute, that long? It had been, she had been there for 50 years. I mean, and there's still Indians in 1999 that'll kill you. I don't know if, and I thought, wow, that's pretty wicked. They must have been, I guess they were, I think they were deeper into the jungle than anybody had went. So they wanted, I guess our plan was to go in there, but I guess they were in a bad mood that day or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what the deal was, why they told us. That's what they told us. So the reason we went there to see how Sophia, this woman, how her ministry went, because she wrote a book about it, and I mean, to me, it was just an amazing thing that she did and continues to save lives even after she had passed away. I mean, they put us all in a line, and the Indians got in a line face to face with us, and we sang a Christian song to them, and they sang one back in their language. And the joy, even hearing that, I can remember it this day, I was just so overwhelmed, even though I didn't know the language. I felt it, and they blew my mind. We wash our clothes and hang them up, and they would come and take them down and wash them again, you know, and hang them up. Wow, you know. I mean, they did they just showed so much love to us that it blew me away. I was a new Christian, well, fairly new at that time, 1999.
So that was your first one.
Yeah.
Approximately how many trips do you think you've gone on over the years now?
You know, I lost.
If you were going to take a guess.
If I was going to take a guess, I'd probably say 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
With my church there and CWE. You know.
And then
Because-
how did you end up here?
And well, when I was with CWE, I think I was in Haiti or Nicaragua, and I had to tell a couple of these guys how to paint. I winded up teaching them how to paint. They didn't know how to paint. One was Bob, electrician. The other one was Ralph. And so I wind up teaching them how to paint. We wind up becoming good friends. And, you know, every time you leave a trip, you say, yeah, I'll see you. Yeah, I'm going to come and visit you someday. You know, I gave them that. So I get a call from Ralph one day, and he says, Bob, what? I go, what, Ralph? He goes, guess what I'm doing? I go, what? Well, me and Bob are sitting here wondering when you're going to come and visit us, like you said. So I winded up having to get a ticket and fly out and spend a day with Bob, and he showed me part of Michigan, the rich part, over by Canada. And Ralph, he showed me the poor part of Detroit and all, and it was just a godly time spending with friends that I had just met. You know, they just treated me like, you know, they brought me into their homes and treated me like a son. And I was blown away again, you know. And then Ralph became, me and him, we went on many trips together and he took me under his wings. He's like 83. And he just took me under his wings and just was like a father figure to me and like a great elder. And he winded up, I winded up, my business was doing great. You know, through everything, I was working. I worked through all that. And then I said, you know what? I'm too comfortable, man. I'm not doing much for the Lord. I'm working with His people. You know, all my clientele were all Christian, all family. They loved me. I didn't have to all I had to do was just wait for one of them to call and do a repaint on them. So my money was there, everything. I was happy. I was, going to church regular, but I wasn't. I can't say I felt stagnant. I said I got to do something. Like Peter. I remember Peter got out of the boat, man. I said I got to make a move. I gotta disrupt myself and make it so I'm not comfortable anymore if I'm going to serve the Lord. You can't. So I called I said, I was painting a house, and it was 90 degrees in New Jersey, and it's hardly ever that hot. And people had masks on, and they were standing in line a block long to look at a house to buy. And I go, you gotta be kidding me. No way. I go, it's time to sell my house and get out. So that was the decision I made. I says, I just got to sell my house and just go somewhere. I'll go wherever. So I wanted to go here because they are based in Miami. So I started praying and calling, and everything was full, or it was way out of my price range. So I'm like, man, let me call Ralph. Maybe Ralph knew some people, because he knows a lot of people, Ralph. He says, yeah, I know about this place, Edinburgh, down there in Texas, a Bible Institute. They have a gigantic wall going around it, needs painting. I go, oh, man. Yeah, that thing's like 20 feet high. I go, he goes, give them a call. They'll set you up, and they'll take care of you. So I call up, I get Mr. White or something, and I said, yeah, well, I'm a painter, man. I'd like to come out there and help you guys. He goes, well, we could give you an apartment for a 2-bedroom apartment for $450 a month or $30 a day. I go, I'm on my way. Because I couldn't find anything for less than $1,200. So I said, I'm on my way. So I hung up the phone, sold the house the next week, got way more than it. I mean, the thing wasn't worth. I paid $68 for it, and I got $2.7 for it 21 years later. So I was blown away, man. And she told me, I said, well, look, when I first called the realtor, I said, oh, yeah, I'm getting the house around, I'm painting, I'm going to put this in, no, you don't have to do any of that, don't worry about it. I go, what do you mean? Yeah, don't worry, I'll get you $200 for it, no problem. All right. So people just wanted homes at that time, they didn't care.
Wow.
So, and it was just all God. When I look back, it was, and so I said, all right, I look on the map, I go, okay, Edinburgh down here, it's at the end of Texas. Good, there can't be nobody but one cowboy, maybe a couple horses, in this place. What could be there? So I drive, and I'm driving, and I get here, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, I just left this. And I just thought, okay, is this what you have for me, Lord? And I got here, and it was a Sunday, and I met Pasquale and his wife, and she gave me her dinner, and I'm like, she goes in and gives me her dinner because they weren't expecting me. And I thought, oh man, how nice is this? These people, man, wow, that is just unbelievable. So, and then I thought, then I go back and he shows me my place, and I thought, well, okay, I gotta go out, I gotta get this, I gotta get that. And I take off, and I forget my phone. But I don't realize that. I do all my shopping, and I'm like, uh-oh, I ain't got the phone. How am I gonna get in this place? I can't, oh my God, I can't get in.
Because the gates are operated through the phone, yeah.
Because the gates are operated to the phone, and I start praying. I'm like, Lord, if you want me here, man, please, you got to help me get in.
This is on the first day? Like, just when you got here?
Yeah. So I'm like, Lord, you got to help me get in here. I don't know how I'm going to get in. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm just driving, and in back of me, somebody pushes the button, and the gate opens up. And I go, okay, Lord, I know this is where you want me. And that's my story.
And so you've been painting here ever since.
I've been painting here and now. Instead of Bob loves painting, it's now Bob loves painting for Jesus.
Wow.
And it's just an amazing thing that God has continued to do in my life. You know, I'm just blown away. You know?
Wow.
But I think we all are, you know, of our stories that we tell of His love for us.
How long have you been here now?
I want to say, let's see, April 9th was 2 years. Yeah.
Wow, 2 years now.
Yeah.
Time flies.
It does. It goes, yeah.
It took me a little while to notice, because you got here in April, you said?
April 9th.
So you kind of got here at the end of the Winter Texan season, so it kind of seemed like, oh, here's another Winter Texan.
Yeah.
But then you stayed, worked all through the year.
Yeah.
And your personality and work ethic is just to get work done, you know, kind of a little bit quieter as far as...
I don't want to, one thing I learned in business is if you start talking with somebody, you're going to wind up talking and you're not going to get anything done. I mean, even customers, they always want to talk. And I got to work. I don't have time to talk. You know, painting's all about time. And if you talk with...
Well, it's a blessing having you here and you getting work done. I mean, there's a lot of work keeping up a campus for the ministry and everything. Even this set, I know there were some ladies that helped with painting, but
They did.
But you're part of kind of helping organize and keep things moving, keep projects moving.
And that was so cool to work with the winter volunteers here that just, you know, they love doing the Lord's work. And that's what I love about all of this. It's all about the Lord. It's none of us. We're all just wanting to please Him at everything we do. So, you know, like when I first, Pasquale said to me, we're driving, he goes, Bob, you ain't gonna get up in the middle of the night and leave, are you? I go, get up dude, I'm living the dream. This is it. What else do I need to do? I'm working 24/7 for the Lord. You know, I die tomorrow, I go right to be with Him. There's not, this is it.
Wow. So I guess I have two questions for finishing. One, just curious. So, technically, would you consider yourself retired and now working full-time volunteer, or how does that work? Where does your money for living come from?
It comes from retirement.
Okay.
I'm retired.
All right.
Working for the Lord 100%.
Yeah.
So
you're retired, but you haven't slowed down yet. You're still working.
And I've tried to slow down ever since I've been here because, you know, you're supposed to slow down, they say, but I after go all them years, and it's such a joy to be doing, you know. You're happy to go do something for the Lord. Let's go do it. Let's get it done.
All right. And that's my second question. Why do you feel like it's worth it working here 24/7? Why is this a place that's worth pouring work into?
Because I can help this ministry with the cost of something and still show the people that God is so good, you know. And that's what I want to, you know, I want to tell my story. I want to show my story. I want to be His ambassador in just every way I can. And that's all I've ever, you know, when He saved me from the mud, I mean, my mud was deep. I actually was, my last day in jail, I had to hold in my food in my hand. I was shaking so bad that they actually, all the food was spilling. They had to put me in a room for 3 days. And that's how bad I was just, and I just thank the Lord so much for taking me out of that mud that I was living in and washing me off. And he put me in a place where nothing but love. And you wake up in the morning, how could you be sad? I mean, even if it's raining and it's cloudy, you're still happy, 'cause
Have you got to meet some of the students yet?
a few, and it's really nice to meet them. I want to meet more because they're all so kind,
So with these stories that I'm wanting to record and help tell, I've started the ones that can speak good enough English recording their stories and in English. And hopefully people like you and others who don't speak Spanish can start to hear more and more of their stories about how God changed their lives, pulled them out of their country to be prepared to be pastors and missionaries here, and then is sending them back, to their countries and around the world. So I'm just at the starting point, but I'm hoping to be able to tell more and more of their stories in English, because we're telling their stories in Spanish, which is good, but there's a big chunk of our country and the people working here and supporting this ministry that don't speak Spanish. So trying to tell their stories in English so that we can hear what God is doing,
And I imagine it's many good stories.
Yeah. Yes, it is for sure.
Because God's always, working, and it's just, even today, trying to go to the doctors, here in Texas, everything's a mess. They're building everything, and I'm like, Lord, before I left, I prayed, help me get there safely. And I just thought I was going to take a turn so I didn't have to stay in this traffic for a half hour, and I'll take a different route. And I did, and it was hectic. But I got through it and got to the doctor's office on time, because I was supposed to make a left, and I made a right, and I went, and somehow God made me get there on time, which was pretty cool in Texas.
Well, this is random. Have you ever read Pilgrim's Progress?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, that was one of my first books.
Oh, that's awesome. When you're talking about the Lord,
A long time ago, but
when you're talking about the Lord rescuing you out of the mud, it just made me remember those stories from Pilgrim's Progress about how the Lord led him along, and then later after him, his family, and stuff.
that was a crazy. It made me think of me too when I was reading it. I was like, wow, this is so cool. This is the guy who wrote this. And ever since I've been on these mission trips, and every time I tell my story, everybody's, well, you need to write a book, Bob. You should write a book. You should write a book. Yeah.
Do you know the guy that wrote that book? Do you know about his story?
I don't.
I think he wrote that book while he was in jail.
Oh, yeah.
But he was in jail for preaching, because he was preaching without a license.
Oh, wow.
And England at that time, you weren't allowed to preach unless you had a license to preach because of the Church of England. And he kept getting thrown in jail for preaching. And it was, I think, during one of those times that he wrote that story.
Huh.
So the Lord kind of put him in a place where he couldn't be preaching, but so he decided to preach through a story.
Yeah.
So,
and I thought about that too. I thought, because you're hearing stories of people out there preaching and they get locked up. I go, Lord, do you want me to get locked up again? Because I know the jail system. You want me to go in jail and preach?
no, I don't think so.
No.
I think he works, but he does work in strange ways sometimes.
Right.
But I'm thankful that we're here. I kind of consider this like a missions hub.
It is.
It's not necessarily the missions field, but it's where people are coming together to teach and to be taught so that they can go out into all the world. And they are going places where you can get locked up or deported
Or killed.
for what they're doing. And some of the stories we're telling, they're going to those countries, and we have to figure out how to tell the stories without putting people in danger. It's like we can't tell the country, or we can't say the people's names and stuff like that. But that's in some cases. But yeah, the Lord is moving, the Latino missionaries into the Muslim world, and that's where it starts getting dangerous. So, and we get to be part of that, even though we're not the ones going right now. We get to be part of the helping send them.
And everything, we're his hands and feet. That's why I say he's working in Tennessee. That blew me away. I had been on a mission trip when I was back home in Tennessee, and I didn't know there were so many camps for children that they're working with. Everybody. There's so many. When I went to Haiti, there was so many people at the airport from different ministries just helping out, and you just think, it's the Lord's work here. I thought, we went to the sugarcane fields. We went in the shopping center, and he said, okay, everybody fill your bag up with whatever you want to give. So you start filling it up. And then everybody gets on the bus, you got a bag, you're going to the sugarcane fields to the people that are so poor they have nothing to eat. Okay, yeah, cool. And we get there, and he goes, well, we have to have a lottery. So they got to put numbers in a hat, and they have to give it to the people because there's not enough to go to give to all of them. And I thought, my heart was broken. I go, you got to be kidding. You mean they're going to get a bag and the people that can't have one? And God said to me, I'm still working, man. There's going to be people coming behind you. Don't worry. I take care of everybody. And I thought, wow, how cool is that? It's not just me. It's everybody. It's the world. He's got people working day and night that we just don't see. The world wants to tell us, oh yeah, this is, we're losing. No, we already won.
Praise the Lord.
He just wants to bless us and show us that he's got everything under control. It's so cool, man. I'm just so proud to be here and tell you my story, because I see what you're trying to do, man, and I'm praying for you, and it's going to be awesome to see, because he does it. I'm not just, he do it for anybody. He wants to bless everybody. It's just you got to be willing, that's all. You be willing, and he does the work.
Praise the Lord. All right. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, my brother.